24 ships went down in the icy waters off the Arctic coast. Not in a battle, not from a torpedo fired by Germany's most powerful battleship, the Tirpitz. They sank because someone believed she might leave port. And by the summer of 1942, that single warship had become Britain's obsession. Winston Churchill was beside himself. He fired off one of the shortest memos of his entire wartime career, addressed to his first Sea Lord. 3 words. Where is Tirpitz? That memo says more about this ship than any battle report ever could. The most powerful battleship in Europe spent nearly 3 years hiding inside a Norwegian fjord. And the mere chance that she might do something was enough to bend the shape of the entire Allied naval war. Britain mounted no fewer than 24 separate operations to try to kill her. Heavy bombers, carrier-based torpedo planes, human torpedoes, midget submarines, more carrier strikes, and finally a brand new bomb built for no other purpose than ending this one ship. More than 200 Allied airmen and sailors died trying. It took nearly 5 years. And when RAF Bomber Command Chief Arthur Harris was finally ordered to finish the job, his reply to Churchill was 2 blunt sentences. Why bother? She's not doing any harm where she is. Harris was, in the narrowest sense, correct. Churchill did not care. This is the story of the most obsessive naval manhunt of the Second World War. The hunt for a ship that almost never fired a shot and somehow became the most feared warship on Earth. Part 1. A ship designed to be feared. She was the sister ship of the Bismarck, and Britain already knew exactly what one of these ships could do. Bismarck had sunk HMS Hood in a matter of minutes the year before, killing nearly 1,400 men. But Tirpitz was even larger, heavier, better armored. At over 52,000 tons fully loaded, she was the heaviest battleship any European navy had ever built. Bigger than the Bismarck, bigger than anything Britain or America had put to sea. 8 15-inch guns, a belt of armor over a foot thick in places. And this time, the German Naval High Command made one decision that changed everything. They would not risk losing her the way they lost Bismarck. Tirpitz would go to Norway, and she would stay there. From early 1942 onward, Tirpitz sat anchored in narrow Norwegian fjords, tucked beneath sheer cliff faces, ringed by anti-torpedo nets, anti-aircraft batteries, and banks of smoke generators that could blanket the entire battleship in a man-made fog within seconds. The lesson of Bismarck had been learned. Tirpitz would not go looking for a fight. She would simply exist. And existing, it turned out, was more than enough. Churchill understood the danger instantly. A battleship of this size, sitting quietly in a Norwegian fjord, could in theory put to sea at any moment and tear into the convoy routes across the North Atlantic and the Arctic, the lifeline Britain depended on for American tanks, aircraft, fuel, and food. To guard against that possibility, every single Arctic convoy now had to be escorted by capital ships powerful enough to fight Tirpitz toe-to-toe. Those battleships and cruisers couldn't be sent anywhere else. They couldn't reinforce the Mediterranean. They couldn't support operations in the Pacific. One battleship, doing nothing, anchored in a fjord, was quietly pinning down a meaningful fraction of the entire Royal Navy. Churchill put it in writing to his chiefs of staff. The destruction or even the crippling of this ship is the greatest naval event of the present time. No other target is comparable to it. Part 2. The early hunt and the convoy that never needed her between 1942 and 1943, a RAF Bomber Command threw wave after wave of aircraft at Tirpitz's anchorage. Different squadrons, different tactics, different approaches from different angles. Every time the result was the same. Nothing. Bombs missed in the dark and the fog. The mountains around the fjord swallowed up bombing runs before pilots could line up a clean shot. The smoke generators did their job. Tirpitz sat untouched, mission after mission. In March 1942, Tirpitz made her only real attempt at offensive action of the entire war, slipping out to try to intercept an Arctic convoy. A British carrier launched 25 torpedo-armed albacores in response. All 25 missed. Tirpitz turned around, went home, and never seriously sortied again. She didn't need to, because 4 months later, in July 1942, came convoy PQ-17. 35 merchant ships sailing from Iceland toward the Soviet Union, loaded with tanks, aircraft, ammunition, and food the Soviets desperately needed to keep fighting on the Eastern Front. Then a report reached the Admiralty. Tirpitz had left her anchorage. Panic set in. The First Sea Lord, Admiral Sir Dudley Pound, fired off 3 orders in rapid succession. Withdraw the cruiser escort, scatter the convoy, every ship for itself. Within hours, German U-boats and Luftwaffe bombers picked off the now undefended merchant ships one at a time. 24 of the 35 never made it. More than 3,000 vehicles, over 200 aircraft, and hundreds of tanks went to the bottom of the Arctic Ocean. And here is the detail that's almost impossible to believe, the kind you check twice when you first read it. The intelligence was wrong. Tirpitz had not sailed. She was still sitting exactly where she'd always been, tied up in her fjord. Not one of those 24 lost ships was sunk by Tirpitz. They were sunk by the fear of Tirpitz, by the mere possibility that she might appear over the horizon. She never fired a shot, and she still destroyed an entire convoy. Churchill himself later called PQ-17 one of the most melancholy episodes in the whole of the war. Part 3. The human torpedoes and the midget submarines. Britain doubled down. In late 1942, a small team of Royal Navy commandos attempted Operation Tidal, towing 2 Chariot human torpedoes, manned underwater craft each carrying 2 operators, across the North Sea toward the Tirpitz anchorage, disguised aboard a Norwegian fishing boat. They came within a few miles of the target before rough seas tore the Chariots loose from their tow. Both crews were forced to scuttle their craft and escape overland. 2 of the operators were eventually captured by German forces and executed. Tirpitz remained completely untouched. By September 1943, the Admiralty had a more ambitious plan ready. Operation Source, one of the most audacious raids of the entire war. 6 tiny X-craft midget submarines, each just 51 feet long, with a crew of 4 carrying 2 underslung explosive charges packed with 2 tons of Amytal apiece, were towed more than 1,000 miles across the North Sea behind full-size submarines, then released to creep alone through the fjord's net defenses and lay their charges directly beneath Tirpitz's hull. It went wrong almost immediately. X-9 was lost with her entire crew when her tow line parted in heavy seas. X-8 developed a leak in one of her side charges, which had to be jettisoned and promptly exploded, crippling the boat so badly she had to be scuttled. X-10 suffered mechanical failures and was forced to abort. That left just 2 boats, X-6, commanded by Lieutenant Donald Cameron, and X-7, commanded by Lieutenant Basil Place, to actually reach the target. Cameron's X-6 ran aground on an uncharted rock, had both her periscope and her gyrocompass fail, and was spotted on the surface by German guards, and still managed to slip beneath Tirpitz and drop her charges before being scuttled. Place's X-7 became tangled in the anti-torpedo nets not once but twice, fighting free each time, and laid her charges as well before being trapped and destroyed on the way out. Both crews were captured and taken aboard Tirpitz itself as prisoners, where they warned the German captain that explosives would detonate beneath his ship within the hour. They were right. The charges went off, tearing open Tirpitz's hull, flooding compartments, and putting her main turrets out of action for months. Cameron and Place were both awarded the Victoria Cross for the attack, Britain's highest award for valor. Tirpitz did not sink. She limped through 6 months of repairs in her own fjord, still afloat, still doing nothing, and still winning simply by existing. Part 4. The carriers try and fail. By April 1944, repairs were complete enough that the Royal Navy decided to try again, this time from the air. Operation Tungsten sent dive bombers from 6 aircraft carriers in a surprise dawn raid. More than 40 Barracuda bombers escorted by fighters, catching Tirpitz completely off guard, with the bulk of her crew still asleep below decks. 15 bombs struck home. Over 100 German sailors were killed, and once again, the battleship did not sink. Her armor held. Through the summer of 1944, the Fleet Air Arm tried 3 more times, Operations Mascot, Goodwood, and a string of follow-up strikes. Every single one failed, beaten back by smoke screens that blanketed the fjord within minutes, by sudden bad weather rolling in off the Arctic, and by bombs that simply weren't heavy enough to crack the armored deck even when they landed. By late August 1944, the Royal Navy admitted defeat. Carrier aircraft did not have bombs large enough to do the job. The task passed to the RAF, Part 5, Why Bother, and the weapon built for one ship. This is the point where Arthur Harris, head of RAF Bomber Command, looked at the entire 2-year history of failed raids, the wasted sorties, the dead air crew, the years of effort thrown at a ship that hadn't fired a hostile shot since 1942, and told Churchill flatly, why bother? She's not doing any harm where she is. In a strictly military sense, Harris had a point. Tirpitz was, by late 1944, a wreck of her former self, barely able to move under her own power, effectively a floating anti-aircraft battery rather than a warship. But Churchill wasn't fighting a military problem anymore. He was fighting a psychological one. Tirpitz didn't need to fire a gun. She only needed to exist, and as long as she existed, the Royal Navy could never fully relax. Harris was overruled. He sent his best, 617 Squadron, the famous Dam Busters, who had breached Germany's Ruhr dams the year before, alongside 9 Squadron. And he sent them with a new weapon, the Tall Boy, a 12,000-pound earthquake bomb designed by engineer Barnes Wallace, the same man behind the bouncing bombs used on the dams. The Tall Boy wasn't built to punch straight through a battleship's deck armor. It was built to bury itself in the seabed or the earth beside the target and detonate underground, sending a shockwave upward powerful enough to crack a ship's hull from below. It existed because nothing else had worked. In September 1944, in Operation Peregrine, Lancasters flew over 2,000 miles, staging through a Soviet airbase to get within range, and dropped tall boys on Tirpitz at her Kofjord anchorage. One bomb struck the bow. The damage was catastrophic. Tirpitz could no longer make any meaningful speed at all. German Naval Command quietly accepted what Harris already suspected. She would never sail again. They moved her south to shallower water near Tromsø, intending to use her purely as a floating gun battery to help defend against an Allied invasion of Norway that never came. Still not sunk, still there. On October 29, 1944, came Operation Obviate. Lancasters flying 2,250 miles from Scotland for another tallboy strike. 30 seconds before the lead aircraft was ready to release, an unexpected shift in the wind dragged a cloud bank directly over the target. No direct hits landed. Tirpitz survived again. Part 6, Operation Catechism, November 12, 1944. Operation Catechism, 29 to 32 Lancasters from 617 and 9 squadrons, flying low to stay under German radar before climbing as the Norwegian coastline appeared. This was the last realistic window before the Arctic winter closed in for good. German defenses were caught completely unprepared. Confused reporting chains between the Kriegsmarine and the Luftwaffe meant Tirpitz's crew wasn't alerted until the bombers were already nearly on top of them. And the fighter squadron tasked with defending her, based at Bardufoss, didn't get airborne until it was far too late. Clear skies meant no smokescreen had time to form. 20 miles out, the bomber crews could already see her clearly, motionless in the fjord, ringed by snow-covered mountains. At least 2 tall boys struck home directly, with several more near misses tearing the hull further. A massive internal explosion tore through her magazines. Tirpitz began to list, then rolled, and within minutes she had capsized completely, coming to rest upside down in the shallow water, with only her hull visible above the surface. Of roughly 1,700 men aboard, German rescue crews managed to pull nearly 600 survivors from the water within 2 hours. Others were trapped in air pockets inside the upturned hull. Local Norwegian civilians who owned oxyacetylene cutting torches initially hid them rather than help, until rescuers finally located equipment and began cutting through the steel. 87 men were pulled out alive over the following 24 hours before the rescue effort was abandoned. The air inside judged to be exhausted. Estimates of the dead range between roughly 940 and 1,200 men. Not a single British aircraft was lost to enemy action that day. One Lancaster, damaged by flak, diverted and landed safely in neutral Sweden. The hunt was over. 4 years, 10 months, multiple major operations, and dozens of individual sorties, hundreds of aircraft committed across the campaign, 2 executed chariot operators, several Victoria Crosses, and a weapon invented for no other purpose than killing this one ship. Part 7. After the War. And here's the ending almost nobody talks about. After all of that, after the bombers, the midget submarines, the human torpedoes, the years of obsession, the wreck of the Tirpitz was sold off to a Norwegian salvage company. Salvage crews spent roughly 9 years afterward cutting the battleship apart where she lay. Much of the recovered steel was repurposed for ordinary post-war construction and roadwork around Norway. If you've ever walked a street in certain parts of Norway, there's a real chance you've walked over fragments of the most hunted battleship in naval history. Not everything was recovered. Norwegian law protects the remaining wreck site as a war grave, since hundreds of German sailors are still believed entombed in the wreckage embedded in the seabed near Tromsø. A memorial marks the site today, and divers may only visit under a strict permit, treating it as the grave site it legally is. A ship that barely fired her guns in anger. A ship that forced an empire to reorganize the deployment of its entire navy for years. A ship that helped annihilate an Arctic convoy without launching a single shell. A ship that took the better part of 5 years, 24 operations, and a bomb built specifically to kill her. Not because of what she did, but because of what she might have done. That is the strange, almost paradoxical power of deterrence in naval warfare. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon is the one that never has to be used at all.